Hi there, welcome to Rachiote Mum. I'm connecting today from work, so I had a gap between two children, so I thought I'd just take the opportunity to talk about mouthing, children putting things in their mouths, chewing on their clothes, chewing on toys, having their fingers and their hands in their mouths. So it's something that's come up in my clinical practice a lot lately, and then it's also come up on Instagram, and with some of my friends have asked me. So I think it's quite a good one to talk about. Now, I think the important thing is to understand where mouthing comes from. So it goes right back to our infancy. So at birth, the ability to latch onto the breast and to suckle is really, evolutionary-wise, our most important skill we need to learn and have. We need to feed to survive. So the proprioception, I've spoken about the proprioception before, that's the feedback, the sensory feedback from our muscles and joints. So the proprioception from the infant's body is the most from its mouth to its brain, and that's really so it can learn and coordinate that latching and that feeding. Not always such an easy task. I've spoken also before about how proprioception is a very regulatory and calming sensory pathway. It tells the brain about where our body is. It's that map of our body. So as the children suckle, it's very calming for them. This is why babies fall asleep on the breast, or they fall asleep sucking a dummy or on a bottle. It is a very calming pathway. So children use that very much as a regulation. And then this sort of progresses, and as a child goes into their toddlerhood and they start exploring the environment, you'll notice that all the toys and sand and leaves and everything goes into the mouth, and it's a very scary time as a parent because you're terrified that your child's going to choke. But it's really because it's as a hangover of that infancy, the feedback from the child's body is still primarily around the mouth area. So they don't really use their fingers the same way we do as adults. We've learned to make our hands our primary source of tactile feedback. But for a toddler and an infant, and even a young child, it's really the mouth that is the primary source of sensory feedback. So when they're popping things in their mouth, they're chewing on things, they're sucking on things, there's a lot of exploring that's going on. They're learning the properties of things, they're learning how things feel, they're learning the shape and the texture of things, as we would with our hands. And then as the child gets older, this starts transferring, and it becomes more about the hands as their grasp develops, and their force in their hands develop, and their arches in their hands develop, and their grasp becomes better. It starts becoming, that tactile distinction starts coming from the hands more and less from the mouth. But we still use that mouth as a regulatory tool. So there's still a lot of proprioception going through that mouth. And interestingly, so proprioception has a bit of we call it a hangover almost. So if you have proprioceptive feedback, you'll feel calm and regulated for a while afterwards. It's not only while you're having that feedback. So what happens is, if we have whole body feedback, we get proprioception, a hangover from that for a longer period. Now, if we have proprioception from our mouth, it's one of the most immediate to the brain. So it's really quick, so it can calm us really quickly. We don't get that same long hangover period, but it does calm us very quickly. So when children are anxious, or when children are feeling sensory overwhelm, or when they're feeling like things are just a bit too much, or they're feeling sad, or for any big feelings really, one of the tools they still use to regulate themselves is putting things in their mouth, whether it's chewing on their top, or chewing on their hands, or chewing on the back of a pencil. And this actually continues quite far into childhood. And so one of the problems is that as adults, we know it's not necessarily healthy to always be putting things in your mouth, especially in a time of a pandemic. So we say to children, stop, take your hands out your mouth, take your top out your mouth. The problem is that we're not meeting the underlying need. So the underlying need really is that the child is trying to regulate themselves. So you need to look at other ways that you can give the child to regulate themselves. Now, generally, maybe you need to look at other regulatory things during the child's day, and whether they're in a context where things are too much for them, or whether there's some underlying anxiety at the time. But as an immediate way of dealing with it. I really like to say don't stop the mouthing, but give them mouthing that is appropriate for them to do. So you can get all sorts of chew toys online, which are made specifically for chewing. You can also just go to your local sort of Dis-Chem or pharmacy and get like those baby training toothbrushes. You get ones with different bristles, so they give different feedback. You can also get, there are lots of teething toys that you can get, and I would just get a range of these and have them at school and at home and in a little box. And then when you notice, or when the teacher notices that your child is beginning to chew on things a lot, to just offer and say, I see you chewing on your shirt, my love, would you like to come and choose one of your chewies instead? Open the box, they get to select one, they can take it away and chew on it. And then when you notice it's been put down, you say, okay, why don't you bring it back? You don't need it now anymore. Come and get it when you need it again. Or if they're going at it for a long time, just say, do you still need that? Do you still need that, or do you want to put that back now? And in that way, it's teaching the child to check in, like, do I need some regulation at the moment? Like, is there something that I need to do for my body? And then check in again and be like, okay, so I've chewed on something and actually I feel a bit better now. You don't have to worry that you're going to encourage them chewing all the time. They will grow out of it as they learn other regulatory strategies. But it is important that you give them a tool in that moment to have the regulation that they need. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that is all clear. Send me any messages if you have any questions. And then also, I really love to get questions, because it means that I can formulate these little video clips around things that you want to know about. So if you have other questions you want to know about, send them along and I'll get back to them as soon as I can. Have a wonderful week. We'll catch up again next week. Bye.